Right, today's scripture reading comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 13. We're going to read this in the ESV. We encourage you to find the scripture in your pew Bibles. Those are ESVs, or if you brought your own Bible. And we are going to do a responsive reading, which means I will read the first verse, and then everyone will respond with the verse after that. We'll keep going back and forth until the end of chapter 13. So again, it's 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And once you've found the scripture, once you're ready to read, if you could please stand as able for the reading of God's word. May the Lord bless the reading of God's word for us today. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I have been fully known. So now faith, hope, and love abide, these three. But the greatest of these is love. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Amen. You may be seated. Well, we are continuing in our sermon series, Practical Discipleship, and today's message is called Becoming Love. This is the goal. This is what we are trying to become. We are trying to become love. We are trying to become more loving as Jesus is loving. And I think it's a question that we have to ask ourselves. Is this actually happening? When you look at churches, when you look at Christians in this world today, are we becoming more loving? And it's a hard question because I think in many ways, a lot of times people look at Christians and wonder, maybe you've wondered this, why are Christians so mean? I read this. Dallas Willard was talking to a denominational leader, and he was saying, when I retire, I want to write a book called Why Are Christians So Mean? It's kind of, an oxymoron. We're supposed to be loving. But a lot of times you see in this country that Christians can be kind of mean-spirited, can be kind of arrogant or condescending or rude or, and sometimes, we may think we have good reasons for it, but it's not particularly loving, and it's kind of weird, isn't it? So someone actually kind of beat that person to the punch. They didn't write Why Are Christians So Rude, but Eugene Cho wrote a book called Thou Shalt Not Be a Jerk. And I actually haven't had a chance to read this book yet. I'm looking forward to it, but it's specifically about engaging in politics. And as you can imagine, they say politics and religion are the two subjects that you don't want to bring up at a dinner party. You don't want to bring up with people you just met because they're so contentious. But I wonder if the ways that we talk about these things or the ways that we interact with people, oftentimes we feel permission to act like a jerk. Dallas Willard shared this story in his book, Renovation of the Heart. And I'm going to put the quote up for you, but I'm just going to read the story for you. So Warren Wiersbe tells how he was approached by an older gentleman at a church where he was to speak. The man expressed awareness that Warren sometimes quoted a certain popular paraphrase version of the Bible. I'm guessing it's probably The Message or one of those. Warren replied, "When I write, I quote whatever translation best says what I want to teach at that point in the book. It doesn't mean I approve of everything in it. To this, the man replied, almost shouting, well, I'm not going to sit and listen to a man who has no convictions about the word of God. And he turned and stormed out of the church in anger, disobeying the very Bible he thought he was defending. It's kind of ironic, isn't it? Why? Why are Christians so mean sometimes? When the Bible is very clear that a lot of this is supposed to be about love. We're supposed to love like Christ. It's a command. It's not an option. It's not an opinion. It's not do it if you want to. We are actually supposed to be loving the way Christ loved us. And yet we don't always see that. Dallas Willard had a theory on this, that maybe in many of our churches today, we emphasize things like doctrine, what you believe. And not saying that those things aren't important, but we stress it so much that people feel like in order to defend that, you can do almost anything. And so sometimes the things that we are emphasizing in church, some of the differences in, practice and, the ways that you go about church, that sometimes that becomes the emphasis instead of love, instead of actually becoming like Jesus. What if becoming like Jesus, becoming love, was actually our priority? Would it change the way that we behaved? Would it change the way that we did church and discipleship? Because I want to be honest that it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. But brothers and sisters, this isn't new. I mean, I guess you could argue, maybe it's getting worse, I'm not really sure. But even Mahatma Gandhi, many, many years ago, he said this, I like your Christ, I do not like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ. Woo, that stings. It should sting. I think we should ask the question, why aren't we more like Christ? If that's what discipleship is, if that is job number one, is that we are supposed to be making disciples. The United Methodist Church, the stated purpose is making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. One of our stated purposes at LGM is to make disciples of Jesus Christ who actually love like Jesus. But so often we're not that. One of the things that I think we have to acknowledge is it's not automatic. It's not. I think it's one of the myths that we have in this world is that if we just believe in Jesus, so I want to be careful here, but I want to be clear, because it doesn't seem to be working. If we just believe in Jesus, we just hear a bunch of sermons and read the Bible and come and worship, we will automatically become loving. But at least when I look out at the world today, when I look at the church, I don't think that's true. I think that there needs to be something else that's happening. And so we're going to take a look at this passage, which is probably the most famous passage in the Bible about love, right? It's read at so many weddings. We just read it a moment ago, 1 Corinthians 13. And I think that they're going to back me up here. Paul's going to back me up here when we talk about love being the most important thing, right? He says, if I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. On this list are a lot of spiritual things, a lot of things that we do in church, right? Even like really kind of fantastic things like prophecy, charity, right? Things like faith. You could have all the faith in the world, faith to be able to do miracles, right? But if you don't have love in that, Paul says, not me, but Paul says in the Bible, we have nothing. We are nothing. It's not worth anything. And so seriously, you can just fill in the blank here. All the stuff you do at church, all the stuff about defending doctrine and these kinds of things and having the right kind of beliefs, right? The right kind of faith. I don't think it's going too far to say that if you do not have love at the core of everything we do, then it's worthless, right? I want to be very clear about that, how important this is. And so, brothers and sisters, again, I don't think anyone disagrees with this, right? But I think the assumption that we have made has been a bad one. The assumption that I think we make is that love is automatic. Or in some ways, love is easy. Is love easy? Because I think that sometimes when people start preaching sermons like this, I don't know about you, but I used to kind of like roll my eyes like, oh, okay, you're going to say love is the answer. You're supposed to love. Okay, Pastor Steve. But this is the thing, right? You can say that. You can roll your eyes. But unless you make it your emphasis, this is my contention today, unless you are purposely trying to become love in the way of Christ, I don't think you will. Because I don't see evidence of that in this world, that we are becoming like love. Right? And so, this idea that love is easy, I think 1 Corinthians 13 will dispel any notions of that when it actually talks about what love is. Sometimes people will do this thing where they'll take out the word love and they'll replace it with a name. They'll say, replace it with your name. I actually don't think this is bad, but I think you have to understand, it's just a metric. I think if you do that, it's just a way of showing you how hard love is, how it's not natural. You know what I mean? So love is patient and kind. What if you replace that with Steve is patient and kind? Or, anyone else, right? I'm trying to think of a name of that no one here has. Vincent is patient and kind. Vincent does not envy or boast. There's no Vincents here, right? Is there? Vincent is not arrogant or rude. He does not insist on his own way. She is not irritable or resentful. She does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. And then it gets a little more serious when it starts saying things like this. Steve bears all things, believes all things. He hopes all things. He endures all things. And one of the things that I've done before, and maybe you've heard me preach on this, I say, now, if you put your name in there, it's not true, right? At least not always. But if you put Jesus in there, it absolutely is true. Jesus is patient and kind. Jesus does not envy or boast. Jesus is not arrogant or rude. He does not insist on his own way. He is not irritable or resentful. He does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but Jesus rejoices with the truth. Jesus bears all things. He believes all things. He hopes all things. He endures all things. Jesus never ends. And so, brothers and sisters, when we look at this list and we realize, number one, that we ain't it, right? We're not there yet. I think the question is then how do you go about it? And part of my problem with the way that this is taught sometimes, or maybe it's not the way it's taught, but the way that we assume is just try really hard to be these things. And brothers and sisters, I'm not saying that's not bad. I'm saying that it doesn't necessarily work. Right? This is where spiritual disciplines come in. What a spiritual discipline is, it is a way to help you become something that you cannot do by direct effort. Right? And so it's not that, definitely you're trying to become more patient. You're trying to become more kind. That's definitely the goal, right? But the idea behind the process of becoming love is that you're going to need help to do some things that you can't do by direct effort. So let me just give you an example. Let's say that you're in a situation where you're not naturally patient. Like you're waiting in line at the DMV. Or you're in a huge line of traffic and you're getting annoyed and you're just like, you find yourself simmering. And what if I were to just say to you, hey, just be patient. Okay, thank you. Now I'm patient, right? That's what I mean. It's not that patience isn't the goal. It definitely is, right? Because love is patient. You're supposed to become patient. What I'm saying is that it doesn't naturally happen that way just by your direct willpower, right? Just by trying to be more patient. There are ways you can become more patient. And so just like anything, There are ways that you can learn to kind of let go of control in life, right? There are spiritual disciplines that help with that. That's what we've been talking about this whole time, right? The way of Christ is learning how to be like Jesus in the way of Jesus. And there will be some things that help that, right? And so, brothers and sisters, this is the thing, right? If love is not absolutely natural, if it's not automatic, if you have the qualities of that love, you will have love. And so what I want to propose this morning is the process of becoming love is the process of learning to take on those characteristics, using spiritual disciplines. I'll explain this in a moment, how we're going to do this, but I want you to understand the mechanics of it, right? So this is the thing. If you're not very patient, you're not going to be very loving. Does that make sense? It's just like a very basic thing, right? If you're not very patient, you're not going to be very loving, right? We usually look at it the other way around. We're like, if you're loving, then you'll be patient. It actually works the opposite. I want to try to prove this to you. There's a very famous study that was done at Princeton Seminary. So this is amongst seminary students who are training to be pastors. Every day they're reading the Bible. Every day they're trying to learn how to lead people to become like Christ, right? So a bunch of seminary students, top of their game, right? And so they did the study with them. And what it was is they told them, and if you guys have seen a lot of different social experiments or psychological experiments, oftentimes when they test something, it's not what they tell you they're testing, right? Because what they told the students they were testing is they said that we want to see the effects of your education on your vocation of being a pastor, right? And we want to see if this education is working, right? And so they said that, okay, when you learn this stuff, we want to see if you can really, if you've ingested it, if you believe it. So what we're going to do is we're going to have you record a 3 to 5 minute talk, like a little sermonette that you're going to give on the effect of your religious education on your profession of being a pastor. Now, if you didn't get all that, that's okay, because that's not what they were testing. It was all a ruse, right? And actually what they were testing is they wanted to see how compassionate they would be. And so what they did was they had 3 groups. One group, nothing. They didn't give them anything to read. Another group, they gave them just an essay on the importance of religious education on what you actually do, right? And then the last group, they gave them the parable of the Good Samaritan. You guys know the parable of the Good Samaritan, right? So there's 3 people walking along a road, and they find a man who had been beaten and he had been robbed and beaten and left on the side of the road to die. And 2 of them just walk on the other side and keep on going. But the last person, the Samaritan, who's supposed to be the least likely person, actually has compassion, right? Takes the person, puts him on his animal, brings him to an inn, cares for him, pays all the money it takes to nurse this person back to health, right? Goes well out of his way, right? So these are seminary students who are hearing this story. And so what they tell them is like, oh, okay, so we're actually going to have you record this, and we're going to do it in another building that's like across the way. So there's a research assistant waiting for you, and they got a video camera all set up. So we want you to go now, right? And so what they didn't know was this whole thing was a setup, right? It wasn't about the talk. But on the way there was a doorway where there's a man who's laying on the ground, and his eyes are closed, and he's coughing, and he's groaning. Right? It's the parable of the Good Samaritan. Right? And they wanted to see, will these seminary students actually help this man? Right? So what do you think? Would they help the man? They're seminary students. They're training to be like Christ, right? So some of them did. Which ones? The ones that read the parable of the Good Samaritan? Well, actually, there was another factor that they had in this. And it was simply this. Some people were told, oh, you're actually late. You got to hurry. They're waiting for you. And so they were hurried, right? And then the other group of people, they were told like, oh, you actually have a few minutes, so take your time. But why don't you make your way over there, right? So one group was told to hurry, you're running late, go now. And the other group was told, you got some time, take your time, right? So the people who were hurried helped about 10% of the time. 90% of the people, Good Samaritan, not so much. They just kept on going, right? And they probably were in a hurry. They're running, right? I don't know. Maybe they didn't even see the guy because they're running. But the people who weren't hurried helped 63% of the time. So did knowing the story of the Good Samaritan, actually just reading the story of the Good Samaritan, it actually had no statistical impact at all. People who actually read the story and the people who didn't, no difference. The only thing that really had a difference was whether or not you were in a hurry, whether or not you were able to have what? Patience. Whether you were able to be inconvenienced. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not insist on its own way. So if you were in an unhurried state, you would be much more likely to act loving. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's not rocket science. But for many of us, we don't understand this. And we think that if I was more loving, then I would be more patient. But it's actually the other way around. If you were more patient, you would be more loving, right? If you were more kind, you would be more loving. You're like, Pastor Steve, isn't that the same thing? I don't think so. It's very easy to be kind, actually. You know, like there's people that you meet all the time. And sometimes we don't even think to be kind to them. But just to say a kind word, just being like, hey, good morning, Hadam. I like your shoes. It's just being kind, right? Is that necessarily loving? Well, I don't know. You don't know my heart, right? You don't know how loving I am, but I'm being kind, right? If you are being kind, it is easier to be loving. Does that make sense? Right? So if you cultivate these different characteristics, then you are likely to become more loving. And so, brothers and sisters, we mentioned this a couple weeks ago, that one of the problems in our society is that all of us are in a hurry. We're in a rush all the time. We're impatient so much of the time. And we were talking about this in our family group Bible study on Friday. And a lot of people were talking about, they're like, yeah, you know, it's kind of weird because even at night, I literally can't do anything, right? Like there's nothing to do, but I'm just sitting there and I feel anxious and I feel hurried, right? And it's just a part of us all the time. It has just become our way of being, that way of being anxious and in a hurry. Brothers and sisters, I experience this all the time. I mean, there are times where I get so angry at the light turning red on the way to my house. There's this left turn that takes forever. You know, when I don't catch that light, I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta wait. I'm not exaggerating. It trips me up. I stopped being a Christian for that 2 minutes. I gotta wait. You know, and the funny thing is there are many times I have nothing to get to. I'm actually, there's nothing to hurry towards. But that hurry is a part of me. It's a part of all of us. And if that is true, is it any wonder then, even amongst Christians who are hurried are not going to be very loving? Does that make sense? That's what the Princeton Theological Seminary study tells us. If you're in a hurry all the time, you ain't going to be very loving, right? Because love is patience. And so one of the things that I think is kind of interesting about all of this is there are people who are trying to become like Jesus, and they're doing it in kind of creative ways. And so there are people who are smarter than me, more spiritual than me. They're coming up with different ways to creatively cultivate some of these characteristics in Christ. And so I mentioned this book written by John Mark Comer called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. It's an excellent book. I'd highly recommend it. And one of the things he talks about is something that he calls the spiritual discipline of slowing, right? So this is the principle. If, you know, by the way, it's the first characteristic. Love is patient. So if love is not in a hurry, then one of the ways that we cultivate that patience within us is to slow down, to practice slowing, right? And so this is not in the Bible, but the principle, love is patient, that is. So how do you get there? If it's not going to just be by saying, try to be more patient, then brothers and sisters, maybe one of the ways it happens is by actually slowing down your body, slowing down your mind, slowing down your words, and you start to embody that sense of slowing. You start to embody patience. And so John Ortberg calls this discipline of slowing cultivating patience by deliberately choosing to place ourselves in positions where we simply have to wait. You choose to slow down. You choose to put yourself in a place where you have to wait. And your natural tendency, you'll be feeling that, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I have to wait. But then you're kind of like, no, I'm going to learn this. By putting myself in a place where I have to wait, where I have to slow, where I can't move. You know, I start to kind of convince myself, no, it's okay. Okay? Body, soul, mind, you don't need to move fast right now. And what happens, and I've experienced this, is that when you continually put yourself in that position, your heart rate will start slowing a little bit too. Your mind will start slowing. Your nervous system will start slowing, right? And this is one of the things that we don't understand. So John Mark Comer says the basic idea behind the practice of slowing is this: slow down your body, slow down your life. And this is not the way most of us in the West think about spirituality, right? This is why so many of us are so bad at spiritual disciplines, because we don't understand that spiritual disciplines are a way of embodying the principles of Christ, making it part of your body. I'll give you a real example, a real easy example or evident example of the way that you can embody a spiritual discipline. You know the discipline of fasting? It's not very popular in the West. Almost nobody does it anymore, right? But when you talk about this idea that the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, right? I lack nothing. You know, and you just say that, and you say you believe it. It's a different thing to say, you know what? I'm actually not going to eat. You're embodying that principle. It's becoming a part of you. I need God. I need the Word of God. I need prayer more than I need food. And you know what? I'm actually not going to eat, right? Of course, you can't do that forever, but you do that for half a day, whatever the case may be, right? And maybe your body, your mind, your spirit starts to believe it. I don't need all this stuff that I think I need. Maybe you fast from social media, you know? Maybe you fast from all these things that you think you need, and you start to convince your body, and then your mind starts to follow suit. I don't really need these things, right? And so that principle, it comes from, or one of the scriptures that kind of backs this up, Romans 12, 1-2. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your body as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. So this idea that your spiritual worship, it ain't all spiritual, at least not the way you think about spirituality. That we think about spirituality as something that's ethereal. And by the way, that word is not spiritual. I know it's the word we use. It's reasonable. Like, well, it's a practical way of worshiping, is to actually sacrifice your body. Put your body in a position where it's giving something up. Make your body wait. Does that make sense? Right? Not just in principle, like I'm just going to try to be more patient. No, make yourself wait, right? As an offering to God, as a sacrifice to God, right? And if you did that, what would change within you? So do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your minds. So there's a way that this world is operating. Some of the things we're going to talk about in a moment, this is important for us to understand. Don't make sense to the world. Like, we're going to talk about ways that you should slow down, walk slower, get in the slow lane, things like that. And to this world, they're like, why would you do that? It's not efficient. Don't you want to go faster? Don't you want to get more stuff done? And brothers and sisters, what we are contending is that as we are doing that, and as the world is telling us that, is like, you know what? The good life is getting things done quickly. And what we're finding is that that ain't true. The more we're doing these things and doing them very quickly, our souls get more anxious. Our minds follow suit. One of the things John Mark Comer says is that as he meets older practitioners of the way of Jesus, Christians who are really taking seriously what it means to become like Christ, he says one of the things he notices is that they move very slowly. Dallas Willard was notorious for how slowly he talked. And he would talk like this. You guys ever see Zootopia? With what is his name? Flash, 100-yard dash, right? The guy who's like, would you like to hear a joke? Huh? How many people were triggered by that scene? Oh my gosh, that triggered me so much. We don't like to wait, but people who follow the way of Christ, they move slowly. And it's not because they're lazy. It's not because they're just elderly and they can't move quickly. It's because they have started to eliminate hurry. It's become a part of their spiritual practice, right? And they're not conforming to the pattern of this world. Their mind is being transformed too. And brothers and sisters, your mind needs to be there too. Don't get me wrong, but it can't just be your mind. Your mind has to become convinced that you don't need to move as quickly as this world is telling you, right? It's gonna be okay, right? And so you do need that. And so, brothers and sisters, I wanna share with you, this is John Mark Comer's list from his book of ways that you can slow. Now, this is very important, this disclaimer, so please understand this. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list of all the things you have to do. I'm gonna tell you, about 75% of the stuff on his list I'm not doing. Right? This is just his list. Right? These are just suggestions of things that you can try. Right? And so what John Mark Comer says is that like it doesn't say in the Bible, thou shalt slow and this is how you will do it, because it was a different society, right? They didn't have the internet then. They didn't have cell phones, right? So none of these are hard and fast or legalistic rules. These are just things that he has done himself and that have worked for him, right? And part of the point of this is learning to be creative. After his list, which we're gonna go through very quickly, I'm gonna give you some things that I've been trying to try to become more loving, to try to get some of those characteristics of love into my life. So again, remember, not legalistic at all, okay? But these are just some suggestions he has. There's 20 of them. Well, I'm gonna go through them quickly, so if you just wanna snap a picture of it, you're trying to write it down, you're gonna hurt your hand. So one is drive the speed limit. Oh, dude, Lord have mercy. Woo! Yo, this one's hard. So for me, I'm just being honest with you. So what I've tried recently is to cut down my speed 5 miles. I usually go 10 miles over. I've been trying to go 5 miles over. I'm still breaking the law, but I'm trying to slow myself down a little bit. I can't do it. I tried doing it this morning. I'm like, I'm gonna preach on this. Let's try to go. I'm like, I can't do it. Lord, I can't do it. It's not in my body yet. But I wonder, if I slow down 5 miles, right, and I do that for a few months, I wonder if my body and my mind, it'll get easier. And maybe a couple months from now, I'll be like, I'm driving the speed limit, guys, Get into the slow lane. Oh, Lord have mercy. Why? Come to a full stop at stop signs. Don't text and drive. Show up 10 minutes early for meetings, but don't use your phone. This is a really good one. I wish I could do this, but this would be a really good one. Can you imagine? Especially meetings that are kind of tense. I try to do this a few times, like when I'm going to a leadership meeting, I'm like, man, this leadership meeting is gonna be kind of stressful. I try to show up a few minutes early, just kind of walk around, just pray. Don't be on your phone. Just kind of walk around. Just know the Lord is there with you. Just try to, de-stress, chill out. Get in the longest checkout lane at the grocery store. Oh my gosh, do you guys ever go to Costco and you see those lines of death? And you're just like, which is the least painful line? And I don't know, but for some reason, like everyone gets in like 2 lines, and then there's lines that are like much shorter, and I'm like, is there something wrong with that line? Am I not supposed to get in that line? And I gotta tell you, maybe I'm not gonna be super good at this, but this is one thing that I've been trying, I really have been trying this, is whatever line I get into, don't look at the other lines, right? Because this is what I normally do. I get in my lane, and then I start racing the person, right? Like, who's gonna get out first? And if they get out before me, I'm like really upset. I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I pick this lane? So I try not to compare. Turn your smartphone into a dumb phone. Get rid of some of those apps you don't need. Maybe even get a flip phone. There's a lot of stuff about phones, because I think the phone does lead to the same kind of hurried society, or this society that's always plugged in, where we think you always got to get information, you always got to get that dopamine hit, you always got to check your email, and it creates a sort of way of being. There are many times I've been late for meetings, not because I was busy, but just because I was, putzing around on my phone, and I didn't even realize what time it was. Is that hitting a little too close to home for some of y'all? Have you ever been late just because you're putzing around on your phone, right? Maybe get off your phone a little bit. We're gonna talk a lot more about this in the future, next couple weeks, so I won't get into all the phone stuff, but I thought this was interesting. Parent your phone, put it to bed before you, and make it sleeping like a kid, right? Treat your phone like a kid. Instead of the phone mastering you, you're like, okay, phone, time to go to bed. I'm gonna spend a few minutes without you before I go to bed. Keep your phone off until after your morning quiet time. That's a good one, really good one. Set times for email so you're not just constantly checking it throughout the day and being all stressed out by it. Set a time and time limit for social media, or just get off it. I gotta tell you, I buried my Facebook app into a folder, and I don't check it nearly as much. My life has been so much better. I gotta tell you, so much better. Set a limit on your entertainment intake, TV, video games, movies, streaming videos. Again, we'll talk more about that in the future. Single task instead of trying to multitask. You guys know multitasking is a myth, right? There's no such thing as multitasking. What it is you're switching very quickly in between things. And every time you switch, there is an energy cost. Right? You actually slow down. You don't retain information as well. It's this myth of an over-busy society that's trying to maximize efficiency, never has a moment to be still, but it actually doesn't work very well. If you single task and you focus, this is actually the way we're built, you will much more easily retain information and get tasks done. Walk slower. Take a day off once a month for silence and solitude. Take up journaling. Experiment with mindfulness and meditation. If you can, take long vacations. Cook your own food and eat in. So I want to share with you just a few of the spiritual disciplines that I've been trying. And they're not really spiritual disciplines. They're just things that I've been trying. One of the things John Mark Comer says is, like, make a game out of it. How little can I use my phone today? Can I get in the slow lane and learn to be okay with it? And so for him, he said, like when I wrote that list, it wasn't with a heavy-handed heart. He said, I was smiling. These things have actually been very life-giving for me. Some of them have even been fun. But for us, we think of it as like, do not use your phone, get in the slow lane. It's not meant to be that, friends. And so everything that I shared today, these are just suggestions. And what I want you guys to do is to come up with your own. My suggestions may not and probably won't work for you, but you got to come up with your own. When you look at that list of qualities, love is patient and kind. Patience, kindness, not envying, not boasting, not arrogant, not rude, not insisting on your own way, not being irritable or resentful, not rejoicing at others' wrongdoing, but rejoicing with the truth, or your own wrongdoing. Either one is not good. When you look at that list of things, are there things that you can start practicing to put your body and your mind and your soul in a position where it will start to take on those characteristics? Does that make sense? So I want to share with you just a few that I've been trying. Make your own. Here's a few of Pastor Steve's. I'm a baby disciple when it comes to this. So please do not hear that I'm the master. I'll tell you the ones that I'm not very good at, but I'm just trying, right? And we're all in this process. So for trying to develop patience and not getting my own way, is leaving plenty of space in between cars and to let other cars get in front of me, especially when I'm not in a hurry. And this one's really hard for me. I just hate it when cars cut in front of me, especially when there's no turn signal. I'm like, who do you think you are? You think your time is more important than mine? Like, seriously, it can set me off the whole day. I'm not exaggerating. It's just a really big problem for me. And so one of the things that I've been trying to do, and like it makes my commute really painful because like a lot of times on the highway, it's like stop and go, but I don't want to leave any room. I don't want any opportunity for some jerk to cut in front of me. So I'm just like always like just, like there's not enough room. Don't even try it. Don't even try it. And like, oh my gosh, it's so like unpleasant. I have to stop and go and, I have to brake suddenly, And it's been much more enjoyable as I've been trying to do this. I'm not super great at it. But can you just leave a little extra room, especially if you're not in a hurry? Now, I'm not saying that doing this when you're in a hurry is a bad idea. I'm just saying if you can't do it when you're not in a hurry, you ain't going to be able to do it when you're in a hurry. Does that make sense? So I'm saying practice it when it's easier. Right? When you're not in a hurry, practice doing some of these things. And then maybe if you can do this when you're not in a hurry, you'll start doing it when you are, right? And so that's one for me. It ain't easy. I'm trying. Number 2, practice listening without speaking. Let people finish their thoughts. This is a part of patience and not getting your own way, right? A lot of times we like to, feel like we're smart and we have answers and that we're winning conversations. Man, conversations today, they have become, it's a contest now. Who's going to win? Who's going to have the best idea? And so one of the things that I've been trying as a pastor is to just let people finish their thought. I know it sounds basic, but it's not. Have you ever tried talking to someone and they keep interrupting you? It's not a very pleasant conversation. Why? Why do we do that? I used to do that all the time. They start talking and I'm like, and then I'm like, I'll let you finish. I got to bring it back. Or like I don't know, maybe some of you guys have done like, like double dutch, like the jump rope thing. It's like conversational double dutch, right? You're just waiting. Where's my opening? When do I jump in, right? Like, okay. They're talking about politics. They're talking about Trump. When are they going to shut up? And then they stop. Okay, go in. Right? Bernie Sanders, and you just butt in, right? And just practice listening without speaking. Let people finish their thoughts. This one I got from Dallas Willard. Dallas Willard, a lot of times would go to places, speak in front of lots of audiences, and not everyone agreed with him. And when someone wasn't agreeing with him, or when they were getting aggressive, he would literally, that double dutch thing took my breath away. It's really sad. Excuse me a moment. My body is a temple of the Lord. Okay. So Dallas Willard would literally, when people were attacking him verbally, he would put his hands behind his back, and he would do it on purpose. Right? It's a posture of openness, not this kind of like, I'm close to what you're saying, or you start sneering or making faces. You ever see the debates, the presidential debates? Dude, just watch people's faces when someone's talking. They're not listening. They're not listening. They're just like, They're not listening. Just listen. Can you imagine? Just put your hands behind your back. Just listen, right? Let them finish, So you don't always need to add your 2 cents. You don't always have to have the last word. This is a very famous story. I've shared this before. Dallas Willard was preaching in a philosophy class, and someone was saying something like very inflammatory. It was like very arrogant the way he was saying it. That this college kid felt like he knew everything, and he was like saying in this way, and he was saying some things that were incorrect. And someone was in that class who knew Dallas Willard really well. And he's like, oh man, Dallas Willard was like one of the smartest men you'd ever meet. He was just, his intellect, and just, he was so well read. And he's like, dude, Dallas is going to eat this guy alive. And he was just like getting ready. And so Dallas, like he always would, he put his hands behind his back, let the guy finish talking. And that's why you're wrong. And he finishes. And Dallas Willard smiles and he says, I think this is a good time to end the class today. And someone goes up to him and they're like, Dallas, dude, you could have let that kid have it. Man, you could have showed him 52 different ways he was wrong and just cut this guy up, right? Like a Ginsu knife. Why didn't you? And Dallas Willard, in his typical Dallas Willard way, said very slowly, I'm trying to practice the spiritual discipline of not having to have the last word. You got to practice, right? Love does not insist on its own way. You don't always have to win, right? And to actually put yourself in positions where you don't have to win. I wrote this kind of like, I don't know if it was controversial, but some people got, I think, maybe a little triggered about some stuff I wrote about the coronavirus and how, I'm like, there's 0 cases in Michigan. There's 0 cases in Michigan so far. Why are we so afraid? And someone wrote me this message, and it was actually very respectful, but they were kind of rebutting some of my points. And it was somebody that I just knew from like Mickey Camp years ago. I don't really know this guy. And he was like, Pastor Steve, I liked your post, but, and then he gave me all these reasons why I'm wrong, right? And so I was ready. I was ready to just be like, okay, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Think about this, think about this. And I'm like, you know what? I don't even really know this guy. I can't say that I love him. If I write all this stuff, it's really not going to have any impact. I'm writing it more for me so I can have the last word. So this is what I wrote him. I wrote him, and I had to delete the big, long message that I wrote before. I had a big, long message ready, and I deleted it, and I was like, hey, brother, thank you so much for taking the time to write to me. That means a lot. You bring up some good points. God bless you. And that was it. That was it. And then he hearted my message, and that was it. We had no more interaction. Ask before you give advice. That's something that I've been trying. Because as a pastor, man, I like to give advice. But lately, I've been trying, especially if I don't know the person super well, when they're talking to me and they're sharing, because people share for so many reasons. It's not always because they want to hear what I have to say. And sometimes they just want to share. And I'm like, hey, is it okay if I give you some advice? And if they say, no, Pastor Steve, I just wanted to vent, I'll be like, okay, cool. That's fine. Something I'm learning. This is one I've been trying. Say hello and smile warmly at strangers. Try this with cashiers, restaurant workers, etc. I've shared this before, but one of the things I tried doing in my neighborhood, because I was just trying to take seriously the command to love my neighbors, I don't know a lot of my neighbors. So one of the things I do is I walk my dog every day, twice a day, right? And one of the things I do, and it was hard at first. It's getting better. It was not in my body. But I wave to every car that comes in my neighborhood. Like whether I know them or not, I wave, right? And in the beginning, I used to be really obsessed. Like, did they wave back? Do they think I'm a weirdo, right? And so honestly, this is what I do, because I was getting so weird about it, that if they didn't wave back, I'm like, do they hate me? They think my dog is pooping on their lawn? Like, I would just get so twisted. So I'm like, I don't even care. Like, sometimes there's a glare on the windshield. I don't even look. I just wave automatically. And many of them do wave back. Some of them are just construction workers coming through, or, they're just like, they're just passing through. They're not even my neighbors, but I just wave. And just for me, it's for me learning how to be kind, right? One of the things I do when I pick up my coffee from Starbucks, the mobile ordering thing, it's like, this is so great for a lot of us introverts who don't want to talk to people. It's like, man, I don't need to talk to anyone. But this is one of the things I do. Whenever I pick up my mobile order, I always say thank you. Whether or not anyone heard me or not, it's not important. But for me, just to learn to be kind, right? So I'll just be like, they're doing their thing. They're like rushing around, making lattes and frappes and whatever. And I'm like, thank you. And I just walk out, And sometimes they'll see me, sometimes they won't. It's just learning to be kind. Develop a practice of diffusing your irritation or resentment. So it says, love is not irritable. It isn't resentful, right? So develop this process, because you will get irritated. Sometimes the resentment will build. Figure out a way to diffuse this quickly. And without expressing it to the person you are irritated with. Now, brothers and sisters, I know this is really hard for some of us. Some of us are like, you don't understand. That person I live with, or my mom, or my dad, or my husband, or my wife, or my friend, they should know by now. That irritates me. I've told them so many times. I'm telling you, telling them again ain't gonna help. It's just gonna escalate everything. It's going to make you more irritated. And the thing is that what irritates me is going to be different than what irritates anyone else. It's a me problem, first and foremost. So deal with it yourself. Love is not irritable, right? So if you get irritated, this is what I try to do. Take a slow breath. The out breath, I heard, is the one that really calms you down. So slow breath in through your nose, and then out through your mouth. Make this one longer. Sometimes they say twice as long as your in-breath, because that's the one that's sending signals to your body to start calming you down, right? And then maybe as you're doing that, acknowledge and accept the fact that you're irritated. I'm irritated right now. I'm mad. I don't like that they did that. I don't like that I'm getting so irritated. Just accept it without feeding it, without getting more irritated. Just say it like you're saying the phone book. You know, I'm really irritated right now. Just accept it. And then forgive yourself for it. Forgive them. Forgive life for being so irritating. Just forgive quickly. And the more you practice doing that, the irritation won't build. The resentment won't build over time either. So brothers and sisters, there's a few things that you can try. Come up with your own. And just the whole idea is that we are trying to become love. That's what Jesus did for us. And we're going to go into communion because that was the way that he showed his love.